If you're a Christian, you consider yourself to be a follower of Christ, on what do you base that? Where does that come from? Is that based upon the Christian home you grew up in? Is that based upon the church you grew up in? Or is it based upon your own high moral standards or your regular spiritual practices? Now listen, if you grew up in church, there's no doubt God used that to give you access to the gospel early on in life. Absolutely. God also used that family of origin in that church to be able to expose you to what God's word had to say. No doubt maybe your moral sensitivity to God's standards has heightened your awareness to your need for God. Absolutely. But none of those things in and of themselves save us. None of it. Because it's never been about bloodline. It's never been about merit or favor that we can get because we accomplished it. In my 10 years at Pleasant Valley, I have sat across numerous individuals across the table that call Pleasant Valley home. And when I ask them the standard question that I love to ask anybody that I'm just starting to get to know, hey, tell me about your spiritual story. Hey, tell me about when you became a Christian. That what they cite is the church they grew up in, the Christian family they grew up in, or all of the activity, the spiritual and religious activity they're a part of, maybe even here at Pleasant Valley. And they never cite that time when they moved from that dominion of darkness into God's marvelous light because they accepted as a free gift Christ's work on their behalf. Now here's the danger with that. If that is how we define the gospel, then we're in a dangerous place because that's never been what it's about. And some of you listening, you need to quit playing church. And you need to accept the free gift of God's grace through Jesus Christ. And not just go through the motions. Because here's the other reality. When we define the gospel in those limited terms, either by our lineage or by our own work and by our own effort, you know what else happens? We have no compulsion to share that with anyone else. Someone else who doesn't come from a Christian family, or someone else who's made a wreck of their own life and doesn't follow God's morals. We will actually look upon them instead of with compassion and wanting to share the good news with them, we'll look upon them with pity. Well, sorry about that person. They didn't come from the right family. They're not doing what God asks. And it begins to paralyze our witness to others.